Hello, I'm Dr. Stephen Myers, and today I want to talk about the latest news this past week has been 42 lost pages of the New Testament have been found or have been revealed. And that's a very interesting story. I want to take a closer look at this and see what we can learn from these lost pages that are now revealed. They call these 42 pages Codex H. And what happened is in the 6th century, there's a manuscript, and it got so old that by the time of the 12th century, it was so old that they decided to reuse the pages. And so they would take the pages apart, they would scrape it off the writing so they could reuse it. And so they put these as bindings in other books, other pages, and reuse them. And they are scattered across a number of cities that these pages were finally, they took pictures of them, scanned them, and brought it all back together. And what was underneath these, they took special pictures to scan for what it was underneath, was called a palimpsest. And this is what Codex H is. And they did a great job at this. You can see I put some articles here. I'll put the links. You can link on it below. The one is from telling the story about how all these pages ended up in other books, and that's very interesting to see. And then Brill has the book out about it that you can download for free open access, which is great. And I'll put some other links down below as well. So we want to take a look at this Codex H. Here are some of the places where the books were, where they found these lost pages. In St. Petersburg, Moscow, Kiev, Torino, and Paris. And then also Mount Athos in Greece. And that's where the monastery was that took apart the old book and repurposed it in new books. Mount Athos is in Greece. It's like a whole peninsula there that has all these different monasteries, and you have to have special permission to go there to visit any of the monasteries. But they're very old and known for collecting these old manuscripts that can be very interesting and helpful in the study of New Testament studies. But this gives you an idea where Mount Athos is, and let's take a closer look at this. Here we have a close-up of the peninsula here of Mount Athos in Greece, and way down at the bottom here we have Magistri Lavta, and this is where this was the monastery where they took apart the 6th century codex and repurposed it in other books. And on the right here we have one of these monasteries, and it's very it looks like a very beautiful place there in Greece. Now we want to look at what the monks were doing. First, you have to parchment is animal skin, and the best animal skin that they would use would be calf skin. and you can scrape them and make it real. It's almost a translucent. That some of these famous books from the Middle Ages, very beautiful books and writing and styles, and some even the outside of the books embedded with jewels. But here's the process. You would scrape, we'll get into that, you would scrape clean the animal skin here. They would scrape off the old writing. It was very expensive to make and get, so you would reuse it. And so you scrape off the old writing, and then you would fold it over. So if you have like a piece of paper, you'd fold it over like twice, and you have get 4 pages out of it. So you fold them together, and then you would punch holes in it so you can stitch it together. And then you'd put wood for the covers, and stitch it to the wood, and then you would put other parchment over it, or else more leather on it, and stitch it together. And then you might want to do some writing on the outside and make it real fancy. And then they would sometimes, I guess you can't see behind me, clasps where you keep the book closed. So this gives you an idea of how they would make these during the Middle Ages. Now we saw how books were made and stitched together. Now we want to look at parchment itself. Are from the hides of animals, sheep, goat, calf, other ones. And then it is soaked in clean water for several hours overnight to rehydrate it, loosen the dirt and salts, and then you scrape it clean of all the fat, the meat. Here, scrape it all off, and then you treat it with like a lime solution. Now, today they may use some other type of solution, but it would be lime that would give it the white color. And then you got to remove, rinse it, remove the hair and other scraping, and then you have to stretch it out on a wood frame, some type of frame. You stretch out the skin and let it dry naturally. And then you can take it off and cut it into the parchment that you need for writing on. And they would also rub pumice or chalk to smooth out the surface. And then it's ready for writing. In Montgomery, New York, there's a factory called Pergamentum, and they make parchment there. And so I went to visit there, and they have these big tumblers that you can put all on the left, put animal skins in there, and it tumbles them in a certain solution. And then over on the right here, I think these mainly leather. The leather is animal skin too, but you would treat it differently. In ancient times, I think they used oak bark to tan and make leather. And for parchment, you would use lime and stretch it out. Here you can see they've been stretching out on the left an animal skin, and I have to let it dry. It can vary at least a week or two that you have to leave it stretched out. And then on the right here, the parchment. Here you can see they have just racks and racks of these frames with the animal skins stretched out. Now the slow drying under this tension aligns the collagen fibers, and it creates a smooth, tight writing surface and prevents warping or shrinkage. So this is a very important part of stretching out the skins. And here's the result, all different kinds of animal skins, some darker, lighter in color, and rolled out, or rolled up, I should say, there at Pergamemnon. More famous is the Dead Sea Scrolls that are mainly written on parchment. And they didn't make them into books. Back then it would be long scrolls. And then with the beginning of like the New Testament, they started making it into books like we have today, because it makes it easier to flip through it instead of a big long 30-foot scroll that you have to open up and close. But the Dead Sea Scrolls, most of them are written on parchment. And it lasts a lot longer than paper or papyrus. So I'm glad that they did it on animal skins to preserve it for us today to find. And here we have some estimates. The Dead Sea Scrolls in Cave 1. You see 1Q. That means Qumran 1, the first cave. This is where they found all the complete scrolls. And 70 to 85% of the scrolls is goat skin, with about 15 to 25% sheep skin and very little calf skin. Now, in Cave 7, 90 to 100% of it was papyrus. And then in Cave 3, you have the copper scroll. So that gives you an idea of the different percentages, but it seems like mainly goat skin, probably most available, would be ones that are most used in making the scrolls, the Dead Sea Scrolls. I want to go back in time, even further back than the Dead Sea Scrolls, to when they began making parchment. Well, there's a story about that. I don't know how true it is. A legend has it that a library in Alexandria, Egypt, had the biggest library. And they were worried that the library at Pergamum would be bigger than theirs. They would get more scrolls. So they didn't want this to happen. So they would not sell any papyrus to Pergamum. So they couldn't make any scrolls, write any more out. And the library at Alexandria would still be the greatest and the best. So Pergamum, they decided to make out of animal skins, use animal skins to write on, parchment instead of papyrus. And so that's what the legend goes on that. It also, I think under the Ptolemies, they would check every ship that came into Alexandria, Egypt. They would check to see if there was any books, or be scrolls back then. And if you had a scroll, they would confiscate it. They would meticulously copy it, and then you give back to you the copy, but they would keep the original for their library. So I guess that's how they got so many scrolls. Over 15 years ago, I went to Pergamum. It was a guided tour. We went to the 7 churches of Revelation, and Pergamum is one of them. And it's a very beautiful site there. The buildings, though, are in ruins, and the library that was there is also in ruins. Here is the largest, steepest amphitheater in the ancient times. A huge one with a very beautiful view. And I told my son, go all the way down to the bottom and talk, and I can see if I can hear you way at the top here. And sure enough, I could hear him clearly way down there at the bottom of what he was saying. I asked ChapGPT to put it back together to Pergamum, what it might have looked like in ancient times. And you can see the library there on the left, a huge building with over 2,000 scrolls, supposedly. Then you see the amphitheater there, and then the altar of Zeus. Supposedly that was the throne of Satan mentioned in the book of Revelation. And the Germans excavated it, took it all back to Berlin, and it's now, and reassembled it. It's now in the Pergamum Museum there in Berlin. And Pergamum is also famous for the temple of Asclepius, the god of healing. So people came from all over the world to come here to be healed. Now let us look at the lost pages themselves, what it contains in Codex H. These are the key findings. There are ancient chapter lists. The pages contain the earliest known examples of chapter lists for Paul's letters, which differ drastically from how we divide letters today. Then there's scribal insights. The fragments show how 6th century scribes corrected, annotated, and interacted with these sacred texts. Then we have the medieval recycling of these parchments and how the sacred works were reused, repurposed once they fell into disrepair. They didn't think about keeping it. They just wanted to reuse it. It was so very expensive. And it follows the Euthalian tradition in the New Testament. And we want to look at what that actually is. It includes these different lists, chapter lists, and other things that we want to look at. And then there's also abbreviations for Jesus, Christ, God the Father, and you can see the letters there, and then they would put a line above it, so you know that this is an abbreviation for God. Now, what's also interesting is the variants. No variants are really exclusively isolated to Codex H, but it weighs in on some of these. For example, in 1 Corinthians 23, all things are lawful is found, but in Codex H it says all things to me are lawful. And so they weighed the evidence and didn't think they should put in to me, but with this lost pages being found, maybe they might change it back and put the me back in it. The Euthalian tradition here, especially when I look at the book of Acts, there's prologues, and this comes from the book, the Euthalian tradition in the New Testament, and you can provide a link where you can link to it and go and see for yourself. So this comes from it. A summary of events of Paul's life to his execution. These are like prologues before the actual book starts. There's summaries of the 14 letters of Paul. and it ranges from a sentence to a paragraph in length telling about it. Now notice that it says 14. They would include Hebrews. They would think Paul wrote Hebrews. Of course, scholars today think that probably Paul did not write Hebrews. Then there's a brief description of the other parts of the Thalian tradition, chapter lists, quotations, election lists, and other things. There's a chronological account of Paul's career which draws from the work of Eusebius. And we want to take a look at some of these. I wanted to pull out the most important or interesting parts, at least to me, is Paul's travels, telling about that. Paul's trip to Rome. Then the martyrdom of Paul tells how he was beheaded under Nero, and gives an exact date for Paul as well as an exact date for Christ's death. And then there's a list of cities where Paul wrote his 14 letters. And then there's the inscription on Athens' altar to the unknown God. And let's see if I can bring it up here. This is a recreation of, it's kind of heavy here, of the altar to the unknown God there that they found in Athens. And here in this inscription, it tells that there was a longer inscription, and Paul just quoted part of it, and now this gives the full inscription. And then the colophon is what comes at the end. So at the end, the copier or author would write some notes about it, that he wrote it or he copied it from this manuscript. And we want to look at one of these conophones here. This comes from the manuscript in Paris, folio 96R. Evangelius wrote and set forth as best he was able in a clear, ordered style. So he's the guy that is writing this. This volume of the Apostle Paul has been prepared for an accurate and easily understood reading by our brethren. From all who are present, I ask forgiveness for my boldness, and I request your prayer for me, carrying along this shared labor. And the book was corrected against the copy in Caesarea from the library of St. Pamphilus by his hand. This is very interesting. That they compared this to the copy that was in Caesarea Maritime. And we want to look at Pamphilus. Pamphilus lived in the latter half of the 3rd century and was martyred in 309 AD under Diocletian and his edicts against the Christians. He was a priest in Caesarea Maritime, which is on the coast of Israel, and you can go see it today. He was one of the chief biblical scholars of his generation, and he was a friend and teacher of Eusebius. And Eusebius, he made church history and all these books from the famous library that Pamphilus had there at Caesarea. And he records the details of his career in Book Vita that has been lost now. He was a native of Phoenicia, that'd be a modern-day Lebanon. And Eusebius, Martyrs of Palestine, attests that Pamphilus was from a rich and honorable family from Beirut. And he gave all his property to the poor and attached himself to the perfect men. Photius quotes Pamphilus' apology to Origen to the effect that Pamphilus went to Alexandria, where his teacher was Pyrrhus, the head of the famous catechetical school there, before settling in Caesarea Maritime, where he was ordained a priest. In Alexandria, Egypt, Pamphilus became devoted to the works of Origen, also a famous writer there in Alexandria. Photius says that Pamphilus was born at Beirut, and a scholar of Pyrrhus who collected sacred literature. According to Eusebius, he suffered martyrdom in the 3rd year of Diocletian's persecution, and after spending 2 years in prison. And while he was in prison, he worked with Eusebius. They worked together on 5 books to defend Origen, who was later declared a heretic. And here's a picture took there at Caesarea. A storm was coming in, and it really rained a lot right there, just not long after I took the picture. Well, I hope this gave you a little view and whet your appetite to study more about the 42 lost pages of the New Testament, Codex H. I'm getting up in years now. I'm 71, so I have to leave it to some of the younger ones who can remember more Hebrew and Greek than I can at the moment. And here's some of the links you can go to, and I'll post them below. One, you can get to the Greek edition, and it has the original that you can look at, and then it puts over to the side sort of like a transliteration of it. Then there's a good article there telling about the history and story of Codex H. And then Brill has graciously have open access to the Thalian tradition in the New Testament. So these are things you can look at. There's other ones. I'll put some links below here. And you can study this out for yourself so you can be familiar with the 42 lost pages of the New Testament. Thank you so much for watching. If you like it, subscribe and ring the bell, and we'll have some more videos on the way.